dead.
They hit us with a lot this week.
They
So
did.
the children obviously have aged a few more years. Well, obviously I can't call them children anymore, but Rhaenyra's kids and Alicent's kids now they all range between the ages of 17 to 29. So we pretty much get to see, them settling into teenage and adulthood, as well as trying to balance the responsibilities that a lot of them don't want. Then we do get to see the ones who are yearning for power. Episode 8 opens up with Rhaenys at Driftmark in her element. If you've seen the episode, she's there on the throne. She's taking her husband's place temporarily as Corlys is ill with something I believe they call blood fever. At any rate, she's doing what she always felt like she was destined to be, although it wasn't on the Targaryen throne. So we see her on this throne. At some point, Corlys's brother, Vaemon, I believe is his name. I literally just learned that, and go figure. It's like, if I'm correct, this is perfect mix of Aemond and Damon. Go figure, right? Uh, so yeah, Corlys's brother walks up to Rhaenys, and he's just pretty much telling her, like, look, my brother, he may not make it through whatever this is. We need to name an heir. And Rhaenys is just like, look, I already want my girls to rule. That's how it's gonna be. And I pretty much think she wants that as a kind of a mirror or and a reflection of what she could have had or what she was supposed to have. But he's just like, no, Corlys is my blood. In fact, I'm the last male with that blood alive. And so he's really making this case, and I believe an accurate one if we do follow, the way their tradition. And if you're saying that a man is going to lead above a woman, then yeah, he definitely would be next in line for succession. But he's clear that it definitely can't be Rhaenyra's boys because they ain't of nobody's blood on the Valerian side.
I know. And it's just interesting that he's making this case to a woman who was robbed of the throne simply because she's a woman. And you're right. If we're just looking at this from the perspective that that the heir has to be a male, then yeah. But the whole time he kept talking like, I'm the only one. And I'm like looking at the daughter, Damon's daughter, I think it's Bela. I was like, she's totally blood as well. And I didn't particularly like that he was talking as if like nobody around has the blood of his brother. And that's just not true.
Right. But as you always point out, when it comes to like misogyny and the patriarchy, it don't even matter. You were born with the wrong chromosome arrangement. Get over it. So there's this scene of this figure crawling in between the tiniest little space in between two rocks, and it's Damon, right? So he's in between these two rocks. Obviously, that's where how in the hell did dragon eggs get in there? Now that I think about it, a human being could barely fit in there. But go figure. But it is a dragon. They probably could have just dug the hole and pushed the rocks back together. Okay, lack of imagination for me. So yeah, Damon's in there and he's retrieved 3 extra eggs from Cyrax. Remember the spoiler alert I dropped last episode that you said was pretty big about there being 17 dragons total that we will see. Obviously, they're picking up the pace. So Damon and Rhaenyra obviously have, 3 more resources in terms of help to look forward to. As he's coming out of that cave, Damon is met with, I forget the guys, what they call them. It's like the dragon handlers. But
I
yeah,
just
one
call
of them
them messengers, but you're right. They actually do
that
handle the
works.
dragons.
So one of them hands Damon a letter from Driftmark. The letter pretty much tells Damon, or she tells her dad exactly what Vaemon is up to, that he plans on going to King's Landing to let them know that, listen, I already know these boys ain't of my blood, not gonna let these girls rule. I'm, the last living, well, as you put it, he's not the last, but he's the last male heir of Valerian blood. So she's like, pretty much dad intervened, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that the letter came from Bela. I don't know why I thought it came from Rhaenys, but that makes sense. She's telling her daddy what's happening back at home.
But they were not like shy at all with allowing you to actually read what was on that script. It was actually very clear and legible for the most part, with the exception of a few words they may have used in their language or older syntax, if that's the right word. But an older language or older use that you may be, you know, not easily to pick up on. But other than
Mm-hmm.
that, so I was like, okay. And
Yeah, I
yeah, so
was
the
tempted. I actually thought about doing that. And then I was like, this probably ain't even in English. So I didn't do it. No, that's good.
right, no, but that's a good thought though, considering his dragon handlers, one, if I'm not mistaken, they only speak in High Valerian.
Mm-hmm.
Damon knows it. Now it is I don't know if his daughters know it. Have we ever heard them speak in it? I don't know. But either way, it was in
Oh no, I think he teaching the daughter on one of the scenes back where he was in the library and with one of his
he may
daughters. I don't
have
remember which
been.
one. And I think he was teaching her the language. Unlike
Okay.
Rhaenyra, I'm trying to figure out why her oldest son is just now learning the language. I'm like, why did that baby didn't grow up? Why he didn't grow up bilingual? Trying to teach him later in life just seemed like a strange strategy, but whatever.
Speaking of that though, the next scene we see Rhaenyra and her family at Dragonstone. She's walking through. I don't know what made me look down, but I immediately noticed she's preggo with Damon's kiddo.
And actually, I don't even think that's their first baby. I mean, didn't they have two other babies? I mean,
Right, because
getting
when she
ahead
was
of
at the
myself.
bed, no, because when she was at the bedside of her dad, yeah, she pulled out too. And I'm like, so you pregnant with a third? And they didn't even tell
Yeah,
us about these other two. But you're right.
exactly. I saw Joffrey on the floor playing, so he's like 5 or whatever, 4. But she's got 3 kiddos with Damon, and they were like they back to back to back to back.
Yeah, so Damon tells Rhaenyra of Damon's plan. Rhaenyra reminds Damon that Rhaenys thinks that she and Damon has already killed her son. So him thinking Rhaenys would help them out, that wouldn't be something reasonable to expect from her, considering again, she thinks that they've killed her son. And for whatever reason, he was just still like try or encourage her to see things your way or whatever. And that pans out to work.
Yeah, Damon, you know, I talked so much shit about him in the beginning, and I still stand firm in how I felt in the beginning. However, in these trying times, um, Damon was definitely needed, and he's growing on me a little bit. I don't, I'm not fully Team Damon, but he does like get the job done to, just put it plainly. And he does seem
So,
to have gotten a little bit not soft, but like reasonable, like thoughtful in how he's going to execute as opposed to being
right.
so rogue. But he's a lot more strategic, which it just calms my nerves a little bit.
They head back to King's Landing where her dad is. Because at this point, they're trying to be number one, they're trying to be Vayman there to to talk to her dad and persuade him to reaffirm Lucerys as the heir, to reaffirm Corlys's wishes. So you can almost sense like there's this big decision coming, and it has to come soon. Not even just for House of Valerian, but for the House of Targaryen too. Because again, but seriously, I can't even say the other foot's on a banana peel. That other foot has joined that other one in the grave. He had a praying grandmother. That's all I'm gonna say. He had a praying grandmother because, honey, he held on. So, if you notice, there's these symbols like the 7-pointed star everywhere. Alicent is wearing one on her neck. There's a big, huge symbol right over the doorway as you're walking into the place. And that's pretty much Alicent paying homage to her faith. She has now redesigned a lot of the Targaryen aesthetic with symbols of her faith, which is called like the 7 gods or the faith of the 7 gods, however you want to say it. Now,
Yeah, I did notice the propaganda. It was everywhere. Like flags were waving. I mean, they were like at every post. And I was just like, what? Thanks for
mm-hmm.
explaining that because I didn't know it was part of her, like her religion.
Right, now check this out. You actually alluded to it and probably didn't realize it or didn't know it, but you alluded to something some episodes back. You mentioned that she's conservative, following tradition, wants to make sure she's always presented as honorable and
Mhm.
chaste and, everything that's holy and pure. The reason I mentioned the aesthetic changing is because the Targaryens, if you remember back in the earlier episodes where Aemma was kind of chilling out in the bay window and her servants were around and Rhaenyra and Alicent first came up on the wall, there was murals of people having sex. It was just
Mhm.
really, kind
Mhm.
of free. Now you've got Alicent coming in, and here's the backstory. As far as faith is concerned, the General Kingdom has no unified religion for everybody to follow. However, there are three predominant faiths in Westeros. Faith of the seven gods. This faith has a seven-pointed star, which represents the seven aspects of a single deity. The followers believe that their God manifests through them. So basically, I mean, you talk about circular reasoning now, for real. Let me guess, your God only talks to you and through you. And I also bet you and your God never disagrees either. We know how that
Yeah.
works.
That's why I called it propaganda, especially now that you said that
Hmm.
those were like religious symbols. They're really unifying the people to their side through these images. So, yeah, that's actually pretty deep.
Then you've got what's called the old gods of the forest, which is currently, I think, Viserys's faith and a lot of the people there too. Pretty much like what pantheism is today. These pretty much follow um worshiping nature and spirits. And again, we saw that through Viserys as well. He didn't necessarily name any particular gods, but they all felt that there was something there. The third dominant faith is called the drowned god, followed by the people in the Iron Islands. If you guys remember, that would be Theon Greyjoys and all of them. They were from the Iron Islands. And their values pretty much align with thinking that maritime prowess and combat skills, above all else, is is their way of aligning with their god. Now, a slight spoiler. Although most people believe in the old gods at this point in the House of the Dragons, the belief will slowly be phased out, no surprise there, by Alicent's faith. In so many words, here comes the seven god nationalism. Not quite the same ring as Christian nationalism, but the end goal is all the same. Back in the King's chambers, we have Rhaenyra and Daemon. They really now get to see just how bad Viserys' condition is. This is where Daemon asks Viserys to reaffirm his decision that Lucerys will be Corlys' successor at Driftmark. Viserys reveals to us in that moment, I don't know if you caught it, the Hightower is in charge of those decisions now. He says that.
Hmm. Yeah, I thought he said Hightower and Alicent, but he probably did just say
Oh,
Hightower. He said basically he let them know that, which I'm just like, even when Damon was bringing that to him and he just kind of was like, and start going in kind of like a fit. And I was like, see, politicking. He can't even catch a break. Someone's always
true.
bringing something to him. And so, I mean, granted, this was urgent news, but I was just like, that poor man, he can't even die in peace.
Now that I think about it, it is absolutely urgent because there's strife again, there's war again in the stepstones. So you definitely don't want to have, any lingering decisions during a time of war. You need to have everybody, all your ducks in
Hmm.
a row. You need to have your line of succession in a row, because otherwise it could prove to be a weakness if you don't. So you're absolutely right. But yeah, Damon seems to think that Allison and Hightower might also be poisoning Viserys in this scene after Viserys asks for his cup of, is it poppy seed? Something? Poppy something.
Yeah, poppy
Whatever it is.
seeds are used. I think they're still an ingredient today. And is it morphine? Basically, the pain medicines that a lot of people get addicted to even today. So, yeah, even if it's not like poisoning to kill him, they're basically trying to keep him sedated so that he doesn't intervene in anything and they can literally just have free reign the way they've been doing.
Alicent learns about Aegon raping the help. Well, her name is Diana. I'm definitely at least going to give the
Yeah.
girl a name. We're not going to call her the help out of respect. So Alicent learns about Aegon violating Diana, and Diana apparently she tells some of the other higher ups, the people closer to Alicent, and then where it gets back to Alicent, and she's asked for the girl to be brought to her. She's not even just on her knees. She's on her hands, knees, face down in the carpet, arms stretched out. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. But it's reminiscent of how women view themselves in that society, right? She's just knowing that even though it wasn't her fault, let me just make myself appear the most meek and humble person possible so the queen doesn't come from my head.
Yeah, I was actually on my seat for that entire scene, just like anticipating how Alicent was going to react to this. And I was sighing, like a sigh of relief, even though, like you said, there's literally no justice in this. Um, I I actually commend Alicent in trying to deliver as best justice as she could, given the circumstances and the society with which they live in.
Even Diana didn't expect for Alicent to more or less help her out in a number of ways or understand. Because at the same time, while the girl was terrified, she was surprised. You could see it on her face when Alicent said she believed her. Diana was like, oh, you do? You believe? Right. And again, that fear is indicative of a society where women are often not listened to or believed in situations involving violations of bodily autonomy.
Yeah, the power dynamic. I mean, if you consider that, it's not just like Allison's just the woman on the street. She is the queen. And that would be quite the accusation to make about her son in any situation. And so I would be surprised too. Number one, it's one thing until I just say, okay, girl, just hush. But Allison affirms her and like she tells her, I believe you, but this is how we're going to handle it. And she delivers justice the best way I know I said that already, but I was just like, okay, it wasn't even just a matter of paying her off because there's no price to being violated that way. But even the money she gave her, I didn't even read that as paying her off, even though she did give her, caution about telling other people, but more so for her own sake. And then, of course, introducing their plan B. Like I said, as crazy as Alicent was the last few episodes, I applaud her at least trying. And maybe that goes to her religion. When she was praying at the dinner table, she did mention like mother God or whatever. So maybe mother is one of the 7 points and she was tapping into that energy. But I do appreciate her just trying with Diana.
Rhaenyra, Daemon, and Alicent eventually meet in the king's chambers. Rhaenyra and Daemon call Alicent and her father out. Now, Otto's not there, but Rhaenyra and Daemon call Alicent and Otto out, to Alicent's face for trying to speed up Viserys' death, or at least they think that's what they're trying to do. Also, we learned that Rhaenyra has named one of her pureblood Targaryen children Aegon, right? And I'm not even mad at her because it's a lot harder to pick a side when everyone has that same name
It
to name
was
that child
funny.
Aegon.
I did think it was sentimental that her other baby was named after Papa Viserys.
Next, we see Aemon flexing in the courtyard. And at some point, he makes an absolute fool of Christian, right? But that's just pretty much a testament to Christian doing his job, being good at who he is and what he does, and is able to transfer that skill to Satan's spawn, unfortunately.
Girl, I was scared of Aemon. I was like, oh my God,
The
I'm
look and
scared.
everything. Exactly. The aesthetic is something else. But
He at
yeah,
least
so
grew into be a handsome man because as a kid, he was a big old head and he wasn't the cutest little kid, but he's handsome with his one eyeball and scar. But girl, I was like
right
terrified.
after Aemon beats Kristen, he looks over at Rhaenyra's boys and he has the most diabolical look. Like that's his resting bitch face is a diabolical look. So he looks over to them and it's just pretty much like, are you ready? It's your turn. Are you ready to train? And I'm just like, man, somebody gonna have to like snuff his ass when he ain't looking. I don't know, push his ass in a fire pit, something. They got some on their hands. They're gonna have some hell
Hmm.
to deal with him. Eventually, Rhaenyra and Rhaenys meet, and Rhaenyra offers to wear Lucerys to Baela, but Rhaenys is not having it. Now she does, in so many words, recognize that that was a good deal, or excuse me, or a good idea, but she also realizes and says that she does not have to take it. She walks off and she kind of leaves Rhaenyra speechless. That was pretty much that olive branch Damon was trying to use to convince Rhaenys, to take her up on that deal.
I thought it was good that she did it, and I thought that that was a really good card that Rhaenys played, because she does have power in the situation. And so even though she didn't necessarily close the door to Rhaenyra's, their names are so the same, Rhaenyra's offer, she, in typical negotiation style, you have to make your concessions known. Don't just go with the first thing that someone offers you. So I like that card that she played, and I was also kind of rooting for them to come together, just if only for girl power, considering the others were plotting something as well.
So decision day comes. Otto Hightower sitting where he probably been trying to get forever. He was sitting on the Iron Throne in a decision making capacity and everything. So they're there to hear everybody's claims to their respective thrones. Vaemon walks in and he makes his case that again he is the only legitimate male heir to Driftmark since he is the brother of Corlys. And just as Rhaenyra is starting to make her case for her throne and her kid's succession, the doors open up behind her. The music is just dramatic, and you really don't know what's going on. But the last person you suspected would be Viserys, right? But
That was
apparently,
actually exactly who I thought would walk through the door. Like,
well, I'm
I
glad
don't
you
know.
did because I
I
didn't think he would
just
have had the strength or the breath to do it.
no, definitely he's, on the brink of death, but that's exactly who I thought was going to walk through the door, only because when he had that, well, more like his daughter, Rhaenyra, pleading for him while he was resting to like just come in and help her because the burden was too much. Something inside of me was like, Papa's gonna step in for her. He's gonna use his last bit of energy to help his daughter, because he just has always done that. And that entire scene was exactly like, that was climatic. Is that the word?
Yep.
Climatic. Okay. Like everything, even how it took like forever for him to get to the throne. I didn't even care because I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, it was definitely a heartfelt scene, and as if you like were really as if you already weren't struggling to get through it. Girl, they had the nerve to have his crown fall off his head. That's when I almost lost it because it's symbolic of what we all know is getting ready to happen. You could even see a little bit on Rhaenys's face too. Like everybody is like, okay, we get it. This shit does weigh on the person in that seat, even though we're gonna keep fighting for it. We see the toll it takes on people.
Yeah, but just to
So,
see Damon be sentimental and help his brother up the steps, I was like, okay,
mhm.
Damon.
So at some point, it's Rhaenys's turn to give her case for, who she thinks should be the heir to Driftmark. And she shocks us all and reaffirms Corlys's wishes to allow Rhaenyra's sons to be heir to Driftmark. Mind you, this is her forfeiting her own wishes to make Lena's daughters heir, which is what she wanted. Why do you think she changed her mind in that moment?
Well, also she wasn't stepping up to make her claim. Viserys said the only person that could explain to me why the hell we're even having this conversation
That's true.
is
So she may not even been prepared to make one, right?
yeah. So I think a part of it is the fact that he affirmed her. And I think that she had all night, well, maybe not all night, I don't know the time frame, but she had time to really consider Rhaenyra's offer. And I think she's a grandmother. She's a woman who understands the system. She knows the misogyny and the patriarchy. And so I'm imagine she thought the best setup to honor this situation that is clearly going to go to Rhaenyra, with Viserys sitting there, the best that she can do is at least marry her daughters in there. And I think what Vaemon didn't understand is that, well, he didn't know this actually, now that I think about it. But anyway, if the two kids have kids, their kids will, rule. And so it's like at the end of the day, what Corlys wanted his whole life, he's actually going to have a bloodline there because the kids are going to have kids. So I think she's just
Mhm.
a strategic grandma and did what she thought was best.
But either way, Vaemon is highly offended, and Vaemon disrespects Rhaenyra and even says the forbidden words that Viserys commanded Alicent not to say in the last scene, and even forbid everybody to never call them bastards. And Vaemon does. And out of nowhere, Daemon beheads him.
Oh, hold on,
Uh,
hold on. It wasn't even about that. It was when he called Rhaenyra a whore.
well, there
That's
you
he took
go.
it as yeah, he took it a step further. That's what because when he said bastards, he said bastard. Everybody's whispering that. But Damon, if you remember, he was like, say it. I dare you to say it. It was
And
the
I thought he was
whore.
referring to bastards, but shit.
Yeah, no, he wanted him to say whore so that he could have a reason to do what he ended up doing. So it was the
Say
whore
less.
part. Yeah.
And did you peep as soon as he did it? Here come Hightower. What he said would take his sword or restrain him. And Damon, like, bro, chill. Like that shit was funny. Hightower just know. Apparently, Hightower know when Damon get the chance, he on his ass. But
Oh yeah.
y'all listen. We're progressing to the family dinner right now, and the tension was so thick in that room you could cut it with a knife. Rhaenyra's children are walking on eggshells around Aemon's crazy ass. Aegon is taunting Jaceres as he's doing the best he can to not blow up on Aemon. All Viserys want is just one big happy family. And now they played that role. I'll give it to him. They played that role long enough for him to draw his last breath.
Yeah, I was gonna say
But
that role lasted like 2 to 3 business minutes, and then they were right back at it.
New York minutes. But like you said, that's Viserys's picture. That's the image he has for his family. Not to mention, remember, he inherited his reign from 60 years of peace. He just trying his best to hold on. But baby, I'm glad he gonna be gone to not see it because hell is coming. So eventually, Viserys passes, and this is the last scene. But what most people probably didn't pick up on, not just that Viserys mistakes Alicent for Rhaenyra. Obviously, Alicent doesn't even know it. But Alicent's belief, if you kind of take a step back, Alicent's belief that she's justified in her claims of, her son being the proper heir is only reinforced, although by accident, but are only reinforced by Viserys is having his delusional moment before he passes. He
Mhm.
mistakes Alicent for his daughter and proclaims that Aegon's prophecy is true. We all know Alicent's son is not the real true heir or whatever, but the fact that Alicent has this faith, and this is the circle of reasoning I'm talking about. She has this faith. Some event happens, even if it is by mistake and not even meant for her, because she has this faith, she's going to automatically assume, hey, this must be my God sending me this message. All these things are working together for my good. This message is from my God. That's not the case. But it does it is the catalyst that triggers the dance of the dragons and thus the war.
Yeah, that
But
was
we
unfortunate. Yeah, but I did like how it ended with him. I say that he saw his wife and his dying days or dying minutes because he says my love when the
Yep,
episode closes out. And I was like, "Oh, he sees his true
right.
wife."
Not to mention he called Allison Aemon last scene too. But that's it for this weekend, guys. We'll catch you next episode.